There are moments when you realize, almost too late, that someone has been watching you. For me, that realization came when I heard a voice outside my bedroom window. Open the window. The voice was muffled by the glass, but I recognized it immediately. It belonged to the strange man I had met only hours earlier at college. And when I looked at the dozens of messages filling my phone, I realized something even worse. He knew where I lived. At the time, I was a freshman at a relatively small commuter college in Delaware. My class schedule was terrible. Most days, I wouldn't even arrive on campus until around 3 in the afternoon. I'd attend a couple of classes, then have a 2-hour gap before my final class, which didn't finish until around 9 at night. I wasn't exactly the most social college student either. I could have used those 2-hour breaks to meet people in the food hall, join clubs, or study in the library. Instead, I usually went straight to the basement of one of the business halls. Down there was a small basement classroom used for one of my evening classes. There was only one other classroom nearby, and most of the time, hardly anyone else ever came down there. I'd bring food, sit in the classroom, work on my laptop, watch videos, or play games on my phone until class started. It was quiet, private, and normally, that was exactly how I wanted it. But one particular evening, I hadn't prepared anything to eat before leaving home. So during my break, I went to the cafeteria and bought myself a sandwich. I sat alone at a table and started eating. Within minutes, though, I became uncomfortable. Almost everyone around me was sitting with friends. Conversations filled the room. People laughed, talked, and moved between tables. And I was sitting there by myself. So I finished what I could, wrapped up the sandwich, and decided to return to the basement classroom. Outside, darkness had already settled over campus. I walked back toward the business hall, went downstairs, entered the classroom, and took my usual seat near the back. I started eating again. For a few minutes, everything was normal. Then I heard the classroom door creak open behind me. I turned around, and almost immediately, I found myself staring directly into the face of someone I'd never seen before. He looked a couple of years older than me. He had an overgrown beard, glasses, and a noticeable belly. Nothing about him was particularly threatening by itself, but something about the way he looked made me uncomfortable. We made awkward eye contact. I looked away and continued eating. I'd never seen him in that class before. I made a mental note of it because something about him just seemed off. Then I noticed where he was sitting, right beside me. There were plenty of empty desks throughout the room, but he had chosen the one literally next to mine. I remember thinking, "Why are you sitting here?" I didn't say it out loud. Instead, I tried to ignore him. I checked my phone. There was still an hour and a half before class. I looked up again, carefully avoiding his face. Then, without turning my head completely, I glanced slightly to the side. He was looking directly at me. That was enough. I finished my sandwich, grabbed my bag, and walked out. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I didn't want to stay in that room. Outside, the campus was dark and chilly. It was late fall, and the temperature had dropped enough that I could feel the cold through my clothes. I walked toward one of the more wooded sections of campus and found a bench underneath a bright light post. It was a relatively unused part of campus, beside a small parking lot surrounded by trees. Very few students passed through there. I sat down. For a little while, nothing happened. Then I heard it. Crack. Crunch. The unmistakable sound of someone walking through dry leaves. I looked around. Between two pine-like bushes, I saw someone standing there. I stood up and leaned forward, trying to get a better look. It was him, the same man from the classroom. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't trying to keep his face concealed. He was simply standing there. Before I could leave, he stepped through the bushes. "Hi." He started talking to me, but even the way he spoke felt strange. He overpronounced his words, almost unnaturally, and began asking me question after question. Did I attend the college? What was my major? Where did I work? What did I do for fun? The questions kept coming. I felt increasingly uncomfortable, but I tried to be polite. I asked him a few questions too, and eventually we sat there talking for a while. Then he asked for my phone number. For reasons I still don't completely understand, I gave it to him. Then his questions became more personal. He asked where I lived. I gave him the name of my hometown. He shook his head. No. Like, where do you live? I paused. I repeated the same answer. Then he clarified. No, like, what's your address? That was when something inside me finally snapped into place. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I simply stood up. I gotta go. And I walked away. A few seconds later, I looked behind me. He was following. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I only knew that I wanted to get away. I skipped my final class that night and went straight to my car. The drive home felt different from normal. I kept thinking about the questions he'd asked me. My major, my job, what I did for fun, where I lived, and then the address. Why would a stranger need to know my address? I couldn't come up with an innocent explanation. When I got home, I went straight to bed. My parents were home, which I was grateful for, but I didn't immediately tell them everything. Instead, I tried to settle myself by working on my homework. I finished a short paper. Then I reached for my phone. There were messages waiting. A lot of them. At least 20. They were coming from a random number. I opened the conversation. The first message was simple. Hey. Then there were more. And more. The tone became increasingly disturbing, until I reached one message that made my stomach drop. You have a nice house. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then I felt a sharp pain in my chest. He had followed me. Somehow he had found my house. I typed back, "Go away or I'm calling the police." I barely had time to look at the screen before I heard a knock. Not at the front door. At my bedroom window. I froze. The shade was pulled down, so I couldn't see who was standing outside. Then I heard a voice through the glass. Muffled, but familiar. Open the window. It was him. The same voice from the campus. The same man who had followed me after asking for my address. Only now, he was outside my bedroom. I shouted that I was calling the police. The voice immediately stopped. Silence filled the room. I stayed where I was. I didn't move toward the window. I didn't lift the shade. My parents were home, so I called the police. When officers arrived, I showed them the messages and explained everything that had happened at college. The classroom, the bench, the questions, the request for my address, the following, and finally, the messages and the voice outside my window. The officers took it seriously, but there was a complication. The man hadn't actually threatened me. He hadn't explicitly said he was going to hurt me. So they told me it would be better to see whether the behavior continued. They advised me to block the number and told me to call again if he returned to the house. Then they left. For the moment, everything was quiet. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was nowhere near over. The next morning, I woke up knowing something had changed. I hadn't slept normally after what happened. Every noise outside had seemed important. Every passing car had made me wonder whether he had come back. Then my phone received a message from the college. It was sent to all students. The campus was warning everyone about sightings of a dangerous young man who had reportedly been walking around with a knife. Classes were shut down for the day. Police were searching the entire campus. Suddenly, the previous night looked completely different. The strange man in the basement classroom. The way he sat beside me despite all the empty seats. The way he watched me, finding me in the wooded section of campus. Following me after I walked away, asking for my address, then somehow appearing outside my home. And now there was a report of a dangerous young man carrying a knife. I contacted the police again and gave them my story. They asked me to explain everything once more. So I did. I told them exactly where I'd met him. I described his appearance. I told them about the questions he'd asked. I explained that he'd followed me. I told them about the messages. And I told them what I'd heard outside my bedroom window. Open the window. That sentence stayed with me. Because the most frightening part wasn't simply that he'd found my house. It was how quickly he'd done it. I'd met him that evening. I'd never given him my address. Yet only hours later, he knew exactly where I lived. I don't know how he found me. I don't know whether he had been watching me before that night. I don't know if he'd followed me from campus. And I don't know what he wanted. As far as I know, the police never caught him. There was no final confrontation. No explanation. No moment where he admitted why he'd targeted me. He simply disappeared. But that doesn't make what happened feel finished. Because for a while afterward, ordinary things didn't feel ordinary anymore. A knock at the window. Footsteps outside. Someone standing too long near a parking lot. A stranger looking in your direction. Any of those things could make me stop and wonder. And the worst part was knowing that, for one night, the distance between an uncomfortable encounter and a potential disaster had become terrifyingly small. When I think back to that night, I still wonder about the decisions I made. Why did I give him my number? Why didn't I leave the moment he sat beside me? Why did I answer any of his questions? But the truth is, nothing about our first interaction seemed dangerous enough to make me understand what was happening. He was just a strange guy at college. Then he became someone sitting beside me. Then someone watching me. Then someone following me. Then someone demanding my address. And finally, Someone standing outside my bedroom window in the middle of the night. That's how quickly it changed. There was no dramatic warning. No obvious sign telling me exactly what he intended to do. The danger revealed itself one step at a time. First, I felt uncomfortable. Then I felt watched. Then I felt followed. By the time I understood that I might actually be in danger, he already knew where I lived. And that is the part one can't forget. He had crossed from being a stranger on campus to becoming a person outside my home in only a matter of hours. The next day's campus warning made everything even more disturbing. A dangerous young man had reportedly been seen walking around with a knife. Classes were canceled. Police searched the campus. And I was asked to tell my story again. As far as I know, they never found him. I never learned his motive. I never learned how he found my house. I never learned whether the knife report was connected to him. And I never learned what might have happened if I had opened that window. Maybe he only wanted to frighten me. Maybe he intended something much worse. I'll never know. What I do know is that I met a stranger during an ordinary college break. I thought I was simply trying to find somewhere quiet to eat. I thought the strange feeling I had around him was just intuition telling me that he was weird. But that feeling was the first warning. I left the classroom. He followed